Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and in this video I am going to be talking about my favorite new book for each year that I've been on YouTube, because as of this year I've been on YouTube for 5 years. I'm pretty much all done with my December reading. I've started a reread of Peter and the Starcatchers series, and that's gonna take me through January, so I do officially know my favorite new read of the year for this year. And obviously I'm not including rereads because this is more about like what new favorites I've discovered while I've been on Booktube these 5 years. So I started my Booktube channel in 2020, and that year my favorite new read of the year, I think my only new read that was 5 stars that year, was The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. I got this one out of the Scribbler subscription box, which is a really great subscription box, by the way. And this is a fantasy book in which a woman has cursed this island that she lives on to not have any more girl children. She has been very wronged by men in her life, and kind of with her dying breath, she lays this curse on the land. It's actually a pretty good quote that I enjoyed quite a bit. She says, "We are abused, we are used, we are bartered and abandoned, but rarely are we loved. So be it. From this day forward, there will be no daughters in Salok for any of you to love." And so yeah, then the rest of the book is kind of the years later fallout of this curse and this island kind of slowly dying as no new girls are born. And it's just really good. I don't really recommend the sequel, but the characters are just so interesting and lovable. And yeah, this was my favorite new read of the year in 2020. Next up, my favorite new read of the year in 2021, my second year on Booktube, was The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. And this was one that I picked up because it is recommended by John Green, my favorite author. It's kind of a dystopian, kind of an outer space book. Humans have gone to a new planet, but that happened like a long time ago, and now humans have kind of regressed into more like farming agricultural society. They're not very advanced technologically, so it doesn't feel spacey. But when humans arrived on this planet, they quickly discovered that everyone could hear everyone's thoughts, and at the time when the book takes place, they've been there for a while, and there are no women in this town that the book is set in. And so that's kind of part of the mystery of like, why are there no women here? But again, I just really love the characters in this one. The way that everyone hearing everyone's thoughts is kind of shown is really interesting. The book has these pages where it's just everyone's thoughts being kind of shouted on the page, but the way that affects the society is told in an interesting way. They can also hear animals' thoughts, and there's a very fun dog character. This book has one of my favorite openings ever because it's just so kind of funny and cute. So the very first sentences are, "The first thing you find out when your dog learns to talk is that dogs don't got nothing much to say about anything. Need a poo, Todd? Shut up, Manchi. Poo. Poo, Todd. I said shut it." I just think that's the funniest opening. Love a good poo joke right at the beginning. This one is a trilogy, and I did not rate the second and the third quite as highly as the first, but I do enjoy the whole series in this case, unlike with The First Girl Child. And yeah, just definitely one of the most interesting, unique reads that I've read. After that, my top new read of 2022 was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which I actually reread this year. I have a habit of reading first books in series and then like waiting a year or so before I then reread and read the whole series. It's just something I do. So I reread it this year, and I read most of the series. The final book was still only in hardcover, and I really want to hold out and wait to have the entire series in paperback. So I'm gonna do another reread next year and finish the final book because it should be in paperback by then. But this is another one that takes place on a different planet. I'm not a big space nerdy, so it is surprising that 2 of these take place on different planets, although like I said, Knife of Never Letting Go, you really wouldn't be able to tell. It's not very spacey at all. This one, however, is pretty spacey. In this one, humans have, I think, crash landed on this planet, and they are under constant attack by aliens. And so the most revered job in this society is being a fighter pilot to keep the aliens at bay. And our main character is kind of infamous because her dad was a fighter pilot who ran away from the fight. So everyone expects her to be a coward and not actually be able to handle being a pilot. But it is her lifelong dream to redeem her dad's name and become the most famous, best fighter pilot ever. And this one has a fun spaceship robot AI sidekick character that I love, Mbot. And again, just really connect with the characters in this one. I'm really enjoying the whole series so far, although, again, I think the first one is the best one so far. And this is kind of the first book that I picked up because of Booktube. Like, I heard about it on Booktube, though it did not hurt that it had this really beautiful purple cover. And then heading into 2023, my favorite new read of the year that year was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. And this one actually just got a sequel this year that I have not gotten around to reading yet. I'm kind of now working my way through all of TJ Klune's books, but I do that very slowly. I tend to, when I have an author that I'm working my way through, I'll just read one book a year. This year it was Under the Whispering Door. Next year it's going to be The Extraordinaries, which this is a series, so I'll have to slowly work my way through it. But then after I finish The Extraordinaries, I will probably reread this one so I can read the sequel, which will also hopefully give it time to get to paperback. But this one is kind of a low fantasy. Our main character kind of goes and checks on orphanages for magical children to make sure that they're being run properly, that they're safe, etc. And in this book, he gets sent to a particularly special orphanage for special children. And it's just kind of about how his relationship with these kids and the man who runs the orphanage kind of changes his life. This one is definitely like just a heartwarming, feel-good, cozy fantasy. I feel like it was right at the beginning of that cozy fantasy trend. And yeah, that's just TJ Klune's writing so far for me. It's just very cozy and warm. And then finally, my top new read for this year was By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. Jodi Picoult is actually my mom's favorite author, and we went to a release event for this book. The month before, we had gone to the release event for Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell, and then we went to this one for Jodi Picoult. And I wish I had started reading Jodi Picoult earlier. Obviously, this is my favorite new book of the year. The amount of research that she had to have put in is just extraordinary. This book is about Amelia Bassano, who was alive during the time of Shakespeare, and Jodi Picoult posits may actually have written many of Shakespeare's works. And yeah, it's such a thick girl. There's just so much meat to it. It's so interesting, so well put together. There is, in very common Jodi Picoult style, a modern day storyline that somewhat mirrors the historical storyline, and that was not as strong to me as the historical storyline. I get why it was there. It was kind of showing that women still a lot of times don't necessarily get to use their names for their own work. That is definitely true and still relevant, but it just wasn't as strongly built for me personally. And so I almost could have done without the modern day storyline. Definitely the historical storyline is what sticks in my head. Jodi is now on the list of authors where I'm planning to read at least one of her books per year, partly because I already had some sitting on my TBR before I got this one. So I'm just going to move them up on the TBR and start going through them at least one a year. This year was slightly harder to pick my favorite new read of the year. I mean, it was this one, realistically, ultimately, obviously. But unlike the first year, 2020, with The First Girl Child being the only new read that was rated 5 stars that year, this year I had 4 new reads that I rated 5 stars. I had By Any Other Name, Tweet Cute, Geekerella, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So just a good year for new reads this year. But yeah, ultimately this one was the 5-stariest 5-star of them all. So that was it for my favorite new read of the year for each year I've been on Booktube. Let me know down below what your favorite new read of the year this year was. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in any of these books, get them while you still can. Get them before they're banned.